Government of the Virgin Islands press conference Monday, June 23rd, 2025. I am Mrs. Karia Christopher, your Acting Director of Communications for the Government of the Virgin Islands, and it is my honor to serve as your moderator this afternoon. At this time, I am pleased to formally welcome our platform guests, the Honourable Premier of the Virgin Islands, Dr. Natalio Wheatley, Honourable Lorna Smith OBE, and Honourable Luce Hodge-Smith. We are grateful for their leadership, their presence here with us today, and I'll take a moment to recognize the presence of several senior government officials, including the Financial Secretary, Mr. Jeremiah Frett, Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Tourism, Mr. Joseph Smith Abbott, Deputy Secretary in the Premier's Office, Dr. Lavon Chalwell-Bruley, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Financial Services, Mrs. Sophia Berkeley, the Director of Tourism, Mr. Clive McCoy, Chief of Staff, Mr. Kedrick Malone, as well as all other senior officials who have joined us this afternoon's proceedings. This press conference is being carried live on the government's official Facebook page, ZBVI Radio, CBN Radio, CCT Live, and Flow TV. We thank these media partners for ensuring that the public remains well informed. To our colleagues in the media, I thank you for your continued engagement. As per our established protocol, we kindly ask that each media representative state your name and the media house you represent. Before posing your questions, each media house is allotted up to 3 questions and 3 follow-up questions. And now we begin the official portion of this afternoon's press conference. I invite the Honourable Premier of the Virgin Islands, Honourable Dr. Natalio Wheatley, to deliver his remarks. And please turn your cell phones off or put them on vibrate, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Karia Christopher. And good afternoon to the people of the Virgin Islands. I'd like to acknowledge our ministers responsible for financial services and trade, and minister responsible for tourism and culture, along with all the senior officials here, and of course GIS. Today marks a solemn day in the Virgin Islands as we mourn the passing of one of our most distinguished daughters, Miss Eileen Lucia Parsons OBE, a trailblazer, a cultural icon, and patriot. Miss Parsons' legacy is deeply woven into the fabric of our society. As the first woman to serve as government minister, deputy chief minister, and deputy speaker of the Legislative Council, she broke barriers and paved the way for future generations of women leaders. Alongside Miss Ethlyn Smith, she was among the first of the 2 women elected to the Legislative Council and among the first at-large members. Historic achievements in our political landscape. Renowned as a BVI cultural icon, Miss Parsons dedicated her life to preserving and promoting Virgin Islands culture. She founded the BVI Heritage Dancers and championed numerous initiatives to celebrate our traditions. Her passion for culture and festivals was unmatched. Her legacy endures through her many contributions, including the Eileen L. Parsons Auditorium at the H. Laverty Community College, a space that embodies her commitment to education, creativity, and community. Miss Parsons lived a remarkable life, passing away just shy of her 95th birthday. Her voice, presence, and service will be dearly missed, but her impact will forever resonate throughout these islands. I extend heartfelt condolences on behalf of myself, on behalf of my family, on behalf of the government and people of the Virgin Islands, to Miss Parsons' family, friends, and the wider community. May her soul rest in eternal peace. I also extend heartfelt condolences to the family of Eric Albert, who lost his life far too young. We all have to work together to eliminate the instances of gun violence in our community. We continue to work with the National Security Council and government more broadly to strengthen law enforcement in response to our present challenges. We'll also hear more about the crime summit being planned for the third quarter. I wish to extend my heartfelt congratulations to all our graduates across the territory, from preschool to university. This is a moment of pride not only for you and your families, but also for the territory. You are the future leaders, innovators, and guardians of our society. As you celebrate this important milestone, I encourage you to remain curious, stay focused, and aim for excellence. The Virgin Islands needs your talent, your energies, and your dreams. Today's press conference touches on many vital matters, reflecting the government's commitment to transparency, good governance, and progress. My colleagues join me, Honourable Luce Hodge-Smith and Honourable Lorna Smith, our junior ministers, who will offer further details on key initiatives. Let me address several critical developments in financial regulation, regional engagement, and culture. I begin with an update on our engagement with the Financial Action Task Force. I would like to publicly thank Honourable Lorna Smith, Minister responsible for Financial Services and Trade, for representing the Virgin Islands at the recent FATF plenary and the ICRG meeting. I also commend the Attorney General, the Financial Services Commission, and all our competent authorities and law enforcement agencies for their tireless work to strengthen our anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism framework. When the mutual evaluation report was first published, we recognized the scale of the task before us. In response, we immediately released our National Action Plan on the same day to guide our approach. Since then, much progress has been made. The FATF has acknowledged that our legislative and institutional framework is broadly sound. While we had hoped to avoid increased monitoring, we accept that some actions, such as prosecuting and convicting financial crimes, require time to be executed effectively and in accordance with the rule of law. Let me be clear. This government remains fully committed to delivering the required reforms. We have invested the necessary resources and built institutional capacity to see this process through. Our goal is to exit the FATF grey list as quickly and responsibly as possible. As Honourable Smith will outline shortly, we have a clear, coordinated roadmap supported by government, regulators, law enforcement, and the private sector. I want to address public concerns regarding the recent liquidation of the Bank of Asia. I fully understand the anxiety this development has caused, and I wish to assure the public that the Financial Services Commission and the Virgin Islands Deposit Insurance Corporation, with the competent and independent authorities, are actively managing the situation. They are empowered by law to oversee all licensed financial institutions operating in the territory and safeguard depositor interests per international best practices. In light of these developments, I have requested an urgent internal audit to the Internal Audit Department to ensure that all processes regarding handling of government deposits and any involvement with the Bank of Asia complied with the established protocols. This audit does not reflect wrongdoing, but demonstrate my government's commitment to transparency, accountability, and due diligence. Let me also state unequivocally that while the government is responsible for public policy and fiscal strategy, It does not regulate financial institutions. That responsibility rests solely with the FSC. The separation between policy making and regulation is critical to the integrity of our financial system. Finally, I implore all media organizations to exercise responsibility by verifying information before publishing anything misleading, inaccurate, or outright false. There have been a number of things circulated in the media which are slanderous, libelous, and damaging to the reputation of the territory. And I ask that we refrain from these unethical practices. On the 9th June, I attended the United Nations Special Committee on Decolonization's June substantive session at UN headquarters in New York. In my statement to the committee, I formally thanked the C-24 for its visiting mission to the territory in August 2024. I also provided the committee with an update on relations between the Virgin Islands and the United Kingdom, including my government's completion of the governance reform program. Additionally, I informed them that my government will be debating the Constitutional Review Commission's report as we seek to advance constitutional negotiations with the United Kingdom. In the margins of the substantive session, I had a constructive meeting with Deputy Representative of the UK Permanent Mission to the UN, His Excellency Ambassador James Kariuki. We discussed the status of the UK Virgin Islands relationship and the steps that we can continue to take to improve relations. I also held a bilateral meeting with the chair of the C-24, Her Excellency Ambassador Menisa Rambali, in which we discussed the Special Committee's ongoing work on the question of the British Virgin Islands. In recent weeks, I was privileged to represent the Virgin Islands at 3 significant regional forums. From the 29th to the 30th of May, I traveled to Cartagena, Colombia, where I attended the 30th Ordinary Meeting of the Association of Caribbean States Ministerial Council and the ACS 10th Summit of Heads of State and/or Government on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the organization. The meetings were held under the theme United for Life, toward a more sustainable Greater Caribbean. At the summit, we reaffirmed a collective commitment to a common vision in which regional cooperation and multilateralism are strengthened as key tools to respond to global challenges. These are set out in a new ACS Strategic Vision 2025 to 2035, which will guide regional action in the coming years. At the ACS Ministerial Council, we discussed how the Greater Caribbean can work together more effectively on issues such as climate justice, inclusive digital transformation, protection of the Caribbean Sea, and the expansion of a sustainable blue economy as fundamental pillars for equitable, comprehensive, and inclusive development. In this regard, we reaffirmed our commitment to sustainable development through the 5 pillars of the ACS: protection of the Caribbean Sea, disaster risk reduction, trade facilitation, sustainable tourism, and air, maritime, and digital connectivity. We also committed to strengthening regional systems that promote trade and transport with a focus on more integrated and resilient economic relationships. In the margins of the ACS meeting, I was very pleased to meet Vice Minister for Cooperation of the Dominican Republic, Honourable Hugo Rivera, with whom I discussed progress on BVI, Dominican Republic relations, and plans for a trade mission. From June 10th to the 13th, I traveled to Brasilia, Brazil, to attend the 55th annual meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank, the first ever to be held in Latin America. The theme, Building the Future Resilient Institutions for a Greener, Stronger, and Inclusive Caribbean, set the tone for strategic high-level discussions. Key topics included climate adaptation, financing, food security, digital transformation, and the future of regional logistics and trade. A landmark session hosted by the Brazilian government focused on developing interregional corridors to facilitate trade and emergency response mechanisms, a significant interest for small island economies like ours. The CDB announced several bold initiatives, including a 5-fold increase in accreditation with the Green Climate Fund, enabling up to $250 million USD in climate financing. The launch of the Surge program to scale renewable energy adoption across member states. A balance sheet optimization framework to improve lending capacity for critical infrastructure projects. During a bilateral meeting with the CDB, I advocated for a reform of the Special Development Fund eligibility criteria. We propose a multidimensional vulnerability index to reflect the real conditions facing small, non-sovereign economies, factors often obscured by traditional credit ratings. The CDB acknowledged the need for further dialogue, signaling openness to technical consultations. The meeting also approved a record $460 million USD for the SDF Cycle 11. The Virgin Islands has committed a provisional contribution of $778,000 pending cabinet approval. This secures continued access to grants and concessional financing to support education, water security, social protection, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Our presence in Brazil deepened ties with a key regional partner and reaffirmed the Virgin Islands' commitment to sustainable development through multilateral cooperation. From June 17th to the 18th, I traveled to St. Vincent and the Grenadines to attend two pivotal events: the 7th sitting of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Assembly and the 77th meeting of the OECS Authority. The Assembly convened under the theme Strengthening Regional Unity in a Shifting Global Order. Discussions centered on regional integration through legislation such as the OECS Free Circulation of Goods Bill and the Contingent Rights Bill, which aim to enhance intra-regional mobility and economic cooperation. Though debate was deferred for deeper review, the groundwork was laid for future parliamentary action across member states. At the authority level, we focused on regional resilience in shifting global economic policies, especially the rising impact of unilateral trade approaches. There was also focused updates on the OECS Centers of Excellence to seek to expand regional access to high-quality medical care, and the OECS Digital Learning Ecosystem, which is modernizing education through digital tools and connectivity. I was proud to affirm the Virgin Islands' commitment to regional solidarity and to call for greater inclusivity for non-sovereign members in decision-making and development financing. Our delegation included the Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Myron Walwyn, the Director of International Affairs, Ms. Donnell Davis, and our Special Envoy for Regional Affairs, Mr. Benito Wheatley, also Honourable Carl Dawson. Turning to our cultural affairs, I'm pleased to report on the revitalization of our beloved Virgin Islands Festival and Fairs Committee. Earlier this year, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sustainable Development led a transparent and merit-based process to reconstitute the Virgin Islands Festival and Fairs Committee in full accordance with the Festival and Fairs Committee Act 2005. As of May 28th, 6 members, including the chair, Mrs. Natalie Penlake, have been appointed to the committee. The remaining 3 positions reserved for Sister Islands representatives will be re-advertised to ensure full representation. The committee has already begun work on the 2025 Emancipation Festival, which was launched on May 30th and is scheduled to run from the 13th July to the 9th of August. This year's festival promises a vibrant, safe, and inclusive celebration of culture and resilience. Additionally, we will be introducing legislative amendments to strengthen the governance of the committee, including the creation of a Department of Festival and Events, improved coordination with other cultural agencies, and enhanced financial oversight for sustainable growth. We are not merely planning events, but reaffirming our identity and investing in national pride. In closing, I thank the people of the Virgin Islands for your continued trust and engagement. We are navigating complex times, but we do so with clarity of vision, unity of purpose, and an unshakable commitment to progress. I will now invite my junior ministers, Honourable Lorna Smith and Honourable Luce Hodge-Smith, to provide further updates on the FATF and festival initiatives, respectively. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Premier. My colleague, Honourable Luce Hodge-Smith, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As the Premier has said, I will focus on the Financial Action Task Force, two aspects of it, that is where we are now and how I believe we can come off the grey list within the minimum possible time. I also, Premier, with your permission, would like to speak very briefly about a groundbreaking event coming up later this week. Thank you. The BVI entered a process known as increased monitoring, commonly known as being on the grey list, following our mutual evaluation report published in 2024, after the assessor team had visited the jurisdiction in March of 2023. It is important to note that increased monitoring is not a sanction, nor is it a reflection of failure. It is a recognition that while we have made substantial progress in improving our anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing framework, a few key areas remain that we must show effectiveness in. It is also a recognition of our desire and our intent to work with the FATF as this process continues. It is important to emphasize that the BVI has already taken robust and proactive steps to address the recommendations identified in our mutual evaluation report. As the Premier said, on the very day that the report was published, we released a comprehensive national action plan and began implementing the required reforms. Over the past year, we have made notable progress. This was acknowledged during last week's, in fact, the week before's FATF plenary, where our delegation, comprised of senior representatives from the Commission, the Ministry of Financial Services, and the Attorney General's chambers, engaged constructively with key international partners, including the United Kingdom, the United States, and the European Union. We were commended on our commitment, our transparency, and the high level of political support demonstrated throughout the process. And we were pleased that the FATF recognized that we had made significant progress in several key areas relating to our framework, and that many of the recommendations from the mutual evaluation report had been either addressed or largely addressed. The grey list status now gives us the opportunity to continue refining and strengthening our systems over the next 2 years in close collaboration with the FATF and the CFATF. We view this as a positive step in our continued development as a well-regulated, cooperative, and internationally respected financial jurisdiction. We will continue to work collaboratively with the organization to implement our action plan in 6 areas, including risk-based supervision of trust and corporate service practitioners, investment businesses and virtual asset service providers, ensuring that accurate and up-to-date beneficial ownership information is available to competent authorities and breaches to obligations are sanctioned. We will improve the quality of suspicious activity reports and ensure that reporting is in line with risk. We will systematically pursue money laundering investigations and prosecutions in line with risk, increasing the seizure and confiscation of criminal proceeds, and operationalizing the new asset management framework. It is our absolute intention to complete these actions within the time frames laid out, and to this end, our revised National Action Plan will be published next month. Be in no doubt, we remain fully committed to upholding the highest global standards and to protecting the integrity and reputation of the BVI. This process is an opportunity, not a setback, and we will seize it to ensure continued confidence in our financial services sector and the wider community. Finally, the Premier mentioned the importance of partnership. And as Dr. Robert Mathavius said recently, working together in a truly BVI first, non-partisan way is the only path forward. I totally agree. There is still much to do, but together with our competent authorities, our regulators, our law enforcement agencies, and our private sector, I strongly believe this unified approach will ensure we can achieve our objective of being removed from the list within the next 2 years. And if I may speak very briefly to the other event coming up this year, or the event coming up on Wednesday, it's what I call a groundbreaking event. It's FinTech on the Seas, and it's BVI's Digital Assets Summit. It's a high-level summit hosted by BVI Finance from the 25th to the 27th on Necker Island for the first 2 days and at Oil Nut Bay on day 3. The event brings together over 150 global leaders in fintech, blockchain, and digital assets to address key issues including tokenized funds, decentralized autonomous organizations, stable coins, and decentralized finance. Of course, AI in crypto assets as well, AML compliance, and crisis management. The summit facilitates strategic discussions and collaboration in a focused environment. And I just wanted to mention that coming for this summit, we will have representatives from Costa Rica, Guernsey, Hong Kong, Singapore, Cayman Islands, Bahamas, USA, Canada, Luxembourg, Panama, Ireland, and of course, our representatives from the British Virgin Islands. I myself am very much looking forward to attending this conference beginning this Wednesday morning. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I recognize the protocol already established. Of course, recognizing my colleague on the right, my left, Honourable Premier, and on my right, Honourable Lorna Smith, and of course all the heads of department and media. I recognize you as well. Before we begin today's proceedings, it's already begun, but before my speech, we pause with profound gratitude and solemn respect to honor the late Miss Eileen Lucia Parsons, OBE. an esteemed cultural icon of the British Virgin Islands, whose passing on Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, leaves a void in our community. Ms. Parsons was a trailblazer, as we heard before, stepping onto the national stage as the first woman to serve in multiple key political roles, and a tireless champion for our heritage. In 2013, she was appointed Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire for her outstanding service to education, culture, and community. Her legacy is perhaps most vividly remembered through her founding of the BVI Heritage Dancers, a powerful cultural movement she used to take the richness of our traditions to audiences around the globe. She also established the Community Singers, and during her decades of service with the Tourist Board and as a cultural officer, helped shape the cultural identity of the Virgin Islands on the world stage. The Eileen L. Parsons Auditorium at the H. Lavely Stout Community College stands as a lasting monument of her unwavering commitment to education, the arts, and community development. Now, with all that said, on a more personal note, as you can read from my statement just now, that Mrs. Parsons and I had similar career paths. She started at the Tourist Board, so did I. She was a cultural officer, and so was I. And she was a political leader, and I am that too. But I would more remember Miss Parsons when I was Miss BVI, crowned in 1981, getting ready to journey to Miss Universe in Lima, Peru in 1982. Mrs. Parsons was in Florida studying, and she selected my gown, and she shipped it in time for me to travel to Lima. I will remember that. It was a very beautiful white full gown, and she did that for me, and I remember that. Today, inspired by her passion and example, we reaffirm our pledge to preserve, promote, and celebrate the cultural richness she so devotedly championed. It is both a privilege and a pleasure to address you today as we formally re-establish the Virgin Islands Festival and Fairs Committee. This moment represents more than the continuation of a cherished tradition. It marks the beginning of a new chapter in how we preserve, promote, and elevate our culture and heritage through national events. In February of this year, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sustainable Development launched a transparent and exclusive recruitment process to reconstitute the committee in accordance with the Festival and Fairs Committee Act 2005. Following public calls for expressions of interest, vigorous interviews, and a merit-based selection process, the new committee was appointed by Cabinet on 28 May 2025. It gives me great pleasure to officially introduce the members of the newly reconstituted Virgin Islands Festival and Fairs Committee. As was announced earlier by the Premier, Mrs. Natalie Penlake is our chair. Ms. Lynette L. Harrigan, she is our vice chair. We extend apologies for her as she is traveling. Mr. Orrin Hodge, the treasurer. Ms. Janelle Letsam, public relations officer. Ms. Delia John Baptiste, member. Ms. Stephanie Christian Williams, member. And as you heard from the Premier, we will be re-advertising for members to represent our sister islands, Virgin Gorda, Jocelyn Dyke, and Anegada. Each of these individuals bring a unique blend of cultural, administrative, and community experience that will be essential to the success of this committee. Their appointments reflect our commitment to diversity, accountability, and the long-term development of our national events. While the committee will work closely with the ministry in the execution of this year's Emancipation Festival, and that partnership is vital, it is important to emphasize that the role of the committee goes far beyond festival planning. In the coming months, we will begin the process of transforming the committee into what will become the Festival and Events Board. The Festival and Events Board will be supported by its own dedicated staff and will operate year-round. This reform will strengthen our capacity to not only deliver on annual festivals, but to curate and support a broader range of national events that will bring value to tourism and reflect the deep cultural richness of the Virgin Islands. From emancipation to music, art, and culinary events, the future board will work collaboratively to build a vibrant, inclusive events calendar that enhances our identity and boosts our tourism product. In closing, I wish to thank all those who expressed interest in serving. We will be advertising again shortly to fill, as I said, the remaining seats, particularly those on the sister islands that are required by law. I also commend the newly appointed members for their willingness to serve and for stepping toward to shape the future of cultural celebration in these islands. We look forward to working together in partnership and with the people of these Virgin Islands to make 2025 and beyond a time of cultural pride, national unity, and creative excellence. I thank you.
I want to say thank you to the Honourable Premier and Honourable Lorna Smith, OBE, and also Honourable Luce Hodge-Smith for their presentation. I do believe we have two cameras, so if you would indulge me for a minute, you call the committee members very quickly. I would want them to stand very quickly, smiley and candid camera, so folks can know who you are. So if you can just stand all together. So this is a big part of the presentation today. Just stand so that the cameras can pick you up in person. So know who are the folks here that's going to be helping us to keep festival alive for 2025. That's a slogan, I just made that up. I could get a prize? Well, it's an old one. Okay, thank you so much. You can say it. I know we were learning very late, so we're going to move forward very quickly. And this is the part that we all are coming here for. The media gets to be able to have their say. So media, you know the protocol already. Please stand. Tell us your name, your media house. And Jess, you have 3 questions because there's a lot of people here, much media today. We'll have to stick to the rules. Please, I can smile and be cute. 3 questions and 3 follow-up only. So without further ado, I can ask the first person to get to the mic on my extreme left and ask their questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kathy Richards, JTV. My first question is to Premier. Premier, you, in speaking on the Bank of Asia matter, you said you would have you're seeking an urgent internal audit, and you also said it does not reflect wrongdoing. If you can expand on that for us, also let us know if that audit is what it's geared at doing, and will it be something that can be shared with the public?
All right, thank you for that question, Kathy. Yes, we did call for internal audit, and of course, under the legislation, I'm empowered to be able to do that as a Minister of Finance. Let me say firstly, Kathy, statements have been made is that I'm investigating myself. That's certainly not the case. And for me, that doesn't speak to the integrity of our internal auditors. They call it as they see it, without fear or favor. And that's their function, to be able to recommend to government any improvements which we need to make to the system. And of course, there were some questions regarding the $5 million deposited into the Bank of Asia. Let me say there were some false claims made about that publicly. I'll just speak to 2 of them, right? But I won't go into everything. I'll just speak to 2 false claims. One false claim was that an account was created in 2025. The leader of the opposition said that. That's false. That's not when the account for the Bank of Asia was created. No, that was false. There's also another claim that Honourable Lorna Smith directed a payment of $5 million. That's completely false. And that's actually quite slanderous. And persons who have taken that to be the gas bill, I would like to inform them that that is completely false. Okay? But there are some questions as to what were the circumstances surrounding that $5 million being deposited. And in full transparency and for the benefit of the public, we had an independent entity, which the internal auditors are, investigate, and of course the results will be shared with the public and with our stakeholders to improve the situation, if we find that there are things which needed to be done better.
Thank you so much, Premier, and that does not warrant me going to my follow-up. I had thought they would have had that. My next question goes to you, Honourable Lorna Smith. You spoke of fintech and, sorry, I'm not used to writing questions. Okay, so we're talking about FATF.
FATF, yes.
FATF. You said that you're looking forward to us getting off the gray list within 2 years. That's not so understood, at least by me. Why would it take such a long period? And if you at the same time can tell us if you are aware if the Virgin Islands has been on this gray list prior to now, and when was that, if that's so?
Certainly, Kathy. Thanks for your question. We only became aware that the BVI would be definitely on that grey list shortly before it was confirmed on the 13th of this month. So, can you hear? I don't know. Oh, okay. I was saying that we only became aware that the BVI would be on the grey list shortly before it was confirmed on the 13th of this month. However, I should say that given our close collaboration with the FATF over the last several months or year, it was no surprise that we were going to be under increased monitoring. In terms of the 2 years, this is the 2 years that has been set by the Financial Action Task Force. There are certain reporting periods, and it sounds like a long time, but the Financial Action Task Force meets 3 times a year only. And included in that 2 years would be another 6 months when, if we, and I hope this happens, we're going to do our best that this happens, if we say came off in 18 months or even 12 months, there has to be another 6 months when they will have to come and make an on-site assessment, and then they report back. So that's the time frame. But it is important to also say that it has been acknowledged by the Financial Action Task Force, as I think I said in the statement, that the BVI has completed a lot of the actions, a significant number of the actions. Sometimes we put a percentage on it, but sometimes we prefer not to, but it's a significant number of actions. And there were 6 areas that I named out that we would need to complete. And I am confident that we will finish within that 2-year period.
Okay, you didn't speak to whether or not this is the first time?
This is the first time that we've been placed on the FATF grey list. Yes.
Okay.
But I think it's important to also point out, Kathy, that I think I may have said that the work on this began even before this current administration. It was a technical decision that was taken by the FATF that there were these areas that needed to be strengthening. But in answer to your question, it is the first time.
Okay, and follow up. Why were you not surprised at the increased possibility of us being on that gray list?
We've been working very closely with the Financial Action Task Force since last year. I think our report was published in February, and we, of course, published our action plan on the very same day. And we were working, as I said earlier, we were working in close collaboration with them. And we had a meeting. I don't want to get down into the weeds, as you put it. We had a meeting called the joint group meeting in about April. But you never know. You never know, even though, as I said, it was not a surprise, you never know what is going to happen until the FATF makes its announcement.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Smith.
Thank you.
Honourable Luce, I have one for you too. First of all, I want to congratulate Ms. Bentley on our new position as the chair for the Virgin Islands Festival Affairs Committee. But with that said, why we don't have anyone from Virgin Gorda, especially to the fact that we're just out of Easter Festival and there was a vibrant committee there chaired by that young man.
Well, thank you, Kathy, for the question. There was an application process where you had to express an interest in the process. It's not like you were appointed like you were before. So the persons from our sister islands had to express interest in serving on the committee. I'm not sure if we had any representatives. We did have someone from a sister island, but that was for a specific post. So we have to go back to the drawing board and re-advertise and get persons to apply from the sister islands.
Okay, so my follow-up has two parts to it.
Really?
Yes.
Let's go quickly.
Cheating.
No, not cheating.
Let's go.
So if you can explain to us what are the posts that are advertised, and can you say when that application period had opened? Was it after Easter Festival?
Yes, I don't remember the exact dates, but I could ask one of my members of staff here to assist me with the exact dates when they were advertised. It was shortly after Easter. And
That's sufficient for me.
yes, it was after Easter, and for the board.
Mhm.
But yes, it was after the Easter because we wanted to focus on the Easter festivities, and then it was advertised. So
The positions?
the positions, as I mentioned earlier, were the chair and vice chair. Those were specific, and then there was members. So no one I don't recall anyone from Antigada applying, or anyone specifically from Virgin Gorda for membership, or from Joss Van Dyke. So we have to go back to the drawing board for that.
Yeah, and let me just add to that, which what Honourable Luce Hodge-Smith said was accurate. But I will take some responsibility from a ministry perspective. When the ad was put out, it didn't specifically state that we were seeking representatives from the sister islands. We recognize that as an error. So we're going to put out another advertisement asking for members from Virgin Gorda, Antigada, and Joss Van Dyke.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. We'll invite our next media house.
Good afternoon, I'm Beverly Luce at BBA Radio. I'll start with Minister Smith, and that's Mrs. Lorna Smith. Being grey-listed, it is not as bad as being blacklisted. As you said, it's not a sanction. A talk show host said recently that being grey-listed, it would lure investors or business away from the territory, and that BVI cannot afford to have any bank failures at this time, as well as how much of a damage does being grey-listed does for the territory's business.
Thank you for that. Being relisted, Beverly, is not, as I said before, it is not a sanction. I do not, while we have to keep an eye on progress, I do not expect that we will lose any business. When I look at when we consider other jurisdictions throughout the Caribbean which have been gray listed, and I believe that Bermuda was the only country that was not gray listed. None of them lost any business. You think of Cayman, that was gray listed up to, I think, 2024 or late 2023. Their business increased. So there is no reason for me to think that there will be any loss of business. In fact, the 6 areas are very specific in terms of the areas that we need to strengthen. And I firmly believe that when the investors, or when persons observe the swift and visible progress that countries are making, or in the case of the British Virgin Islands as a jurisdiction, is making to fix those areas that have been identified, it boosts investor confidence. So I am aware that this point was made, but I think that person was very incorrect. There is no reason to believe that we're going to lose business.
Thank you. Premier Wheatley, the minimum wage, I think you announced a phased implementation for next month. Is that still on track? And how soon after do you plan to implement what was proposed, 850?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, we are on track for July 1st. As it pertains to a further increase of 850, I hesitate to give a date. When we miss these dates, we are often held accountable. But it's something that I want to do after ensuring that a number of other actions are taken, including certain policies and practices which will assist the business community to be able to absorb the cost of those increases. And that's something that we're working through. We want to work on a minimum, what's the term?
Basket of goods.
The basket of goods. We're also exploring the tax exemption being increased. So there are a number of things that we're doing, and then we can reevaluate and provide a further increase. But we're taking a phased approach, and we have to recognize that one action impacts many other actions, and some of these actions may not even help the persons who you're trying to help. For instance, if it becomes too expensive to run business, persons can lose employment as opposed to getting an increase in their salaries. So it's something that we have to consider very carefully.
So as a follow-up, the last time I was here, which was a couple months ago, I did ask you about the basket of goods indeed, and you said you was going to work in collaboration with the Dominican Republic to get those items for the basket of goods from there. How soon do you plan to go on a trade mission there? And in terms of having that implemented, the basket of goods.
Okay, so just for clarity, it just doesn't speak to the Dominican Republic, but we do see the Dominican Republic as a key partner in being able to assist us in sourcing goods at a cheaper price, and we're working on a specific date right now. We already had officials from Ministry of Financial Services, Economic Development, and Digital Transformation travel to the Dominican Republic for a food festival that they had. We had many persons from the private sector that have traveled to the Dominican Republic. Right now we're in the process of finalizing our memoranda a memorandum of understanding between the Virgin Islands and the Dominican Republic. And when that is complete, I'll be traveling to the Dominican Republic to sign that document. And I may have another potential trip to the Dominican Republic, but that hasn't been finalized as yet.
Some time ago, you had promised a press conference with members of the tourist board to discuss the financials for the music festival, the one-stop hot dessert, but that never happened.
Well, we have the director of the tourist board here, so I'll say it for his hearing as well, and the PS from the Ministry of Tourism. I would like for that to be organized, perhaps maybe following the festival season, because of course I think persons will be somewhat distracted with, you have graduations and festival. So perhaps sometimes after that, we can organize a press conference to discuss, performance on past festivals and the approach we want to take moving forward.
But we're going into the next festival and we don't know the financials and how much money is being pumped into this year's festival.
Oh, if you're talking about the Emancipation Festival, we have a PS here. Remind me whether the annual report passed through cabinet as yet? Yeah, I think we're just finalizing the details for the last report, and then that's going to be laid on the table of the House of Assembly.
Yes, Honourable Premier, the report must go through cabinet on its way to the House, and that should be finalized very shortly.
Right. Yeah, I know those details. I think there were just a few details that they were trying to make sure were accurate in the report before it comes to cabinet. To us, it would have been laid on the table of the House of Assembly already.
As well as how much is going to the festival this year?
Please go to the mic and careful at the amount of follow-up questions. I love you, but you gotta be fair.
So before you go, PS, it's action about the budget for this year's festival. Can you just share that information if you have it?
Sure, Honourable Premier, the Ministry has worked very closely with the incoming members of the committee to establish actually the budget. We have heard from the subcommittee chairs. We've been working very closely with the Ministry in particular and the Tourist Board to establish what the ceilings are in expenditure. So that has already been looked at, and the allocations actually for that, inclusive of the revenue potential for the event, have been taken into account. So that will become the basis for our reporting.
Okay, so but you don't have the actual figures right now in terms of how much government is given this year?
So what was approved, what was allocated actually was $1.2 million to the Festival and Fairs Committee.
Okay, that was approved, but I believe we were planning on providing a little bit more money through a SAP, right?
Exactly. So
okay.
but that will have to obviously go through the process.
Yeah, so subject to approval from the House, we may have additional funds. I'm pretty sure the House would grant us that, but approved in the budget's $1.2 million for the year. That included Virgin Gorda as well.
Thank you.
Just sorry.
Go ahead.
If I may just add, and I know we're short of time, I wanted to add a point, Premier, in relation to the Dominican Republic.
Yes.
And this is in relation to your question about the trade mission there. And I wanted to say, in addition to the Memorandum of Understanding, we are, as the Ministry of Trade, we are engaging with the persons who went. For example, One Mart went, I believe Rotown Wholesale, and so on went. And we are engaging with them to find out whether there has been any increase in business or whether there has been any leads since that visit. And the process is continuing, but I've heard from one at least that there have been good leads in terms of suppliers, and that they have at least an additional option in terms of shippers directly between the Dominican Republic and the British Virgin Islands, which I thought was great news.
And thank you for that addition, Honourable Smith. But just to say, I neglected to say this, when I was in Colombia, I had a bilateral with the Vice Minister that was extremely positive. And he has outlined to me a number of potential benefits of closer relationship with the BVI, to the point where he was wondering, well, why haven't we established this relationship before? So there's great enthusiasm for that, and I believe that it will result in better prices for the people of the Virgin Islands. When you consider that some of the products we use now come from the Dominican Republic, but just via Miami, so to establish direct link with the Dominican Republic rather than things going to North America and then coming back to us.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Luce from ZBV, I think you're finished. BVI because it's chomping at the bits, so go ahead.
As always.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Premier, Ministers. Sean Connolly, Business Editor of the BVI Beacon. Mr. Premier, you've already brought up the 5 million deposit to the Bank of Asia. You've denied that you made the decision to deposit the 5 million. Did you have any advance knowledge at all that the government was planning to make the deposit? And if not, when did you learn that the money had been deposited?
I perhaps would just ask that we just wait for internal audit to provide all the information. But I will answer your question. No, I did not know about the deposit before it was made. But I'll just leave it at that.
As Finance Minister, if you didn't know, doesn't that show that you don't have enough grip on the Finance Department?
I wouldn't say that, but of course there are always improvements that can be made to how the ministry is administered.
Okay, my second question: do you know? Do you now know who made the decision to deposit the money? If so, who was it, and are they still actively serving in that role?
I'll leave that just to the internal auditor to be able to outline.
But it's not a police inquiry; it's just an internal audit, which
I know it
often
is.
seems
I know
to
it is.
disappear in this country.
All the details, relevant details in regard to the deposit of the money will be outlined in that report, and I will share the results of the report.
As a follow-up, what do you say though to people who are bound to say that you're hiding behind the audit and you possibly have something to hide because of
I don't think audits are anything that you hide behind. In my view, audits are things which are extremely detailed and designed to provide the necessary information. In fact, I'm saying that I'm being responsible in terms of making sure that persons have all the information necessary so we all can come to proper conclusions.
Okay, final question on the grey list. As we're now on the grey list, that automatically means that we're added to the UK and EU high-risk lists, which require regulators to conduct EDD, which is enhanced due diligence on BVI entities. How much of a barrier or deterrent do you think that's going to be for people entities are already operating here and potential future investors?
I defer that question to the minister responsible for financial services or her technical officials.
I invite my technical officials to join if they want to, but I do not expect that it's going to be a barrier based on the conversations that we've had with our larger entities operating here in the British Virgin Islands. Remember, we're talking about 2 weeks out. We don't know what we've been added to as yet, so perhaps another time later on you can ask the question.
Okay, follow up to that, final question. Mr. Premier, perhaps you can answer this one. The Junior Minister made a valiant effort to rather Disney-esque the impact of being on the grey list, saying it wasn't a setback. I think we'd be hard pushed to find a financial services expert to agree with that. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really bad, what level do you think the level of reputational damage is to the territory's reputation now that it's on the grey list?
Is Disney-esque this dictionary word?
I object.
I like it, Disney-esque. I don't like scales, right? But let me say this. These reports, yeah, they're tough. They're tough processes when you have these evaluations. It's tough stuff. And of course, persons would always like to score highly on these type of evaluations. But when we don't do as well as we would like to do, it's really instructive in terms of what we need to do. I tend to look at these reports very positively because it tells us exactly what we need to do to be able to improve as a jurisdiction. We have a very successful financial services sector, one of the best in the world. But of course that carries significant risk with it. And with this process, I believe we have sufficiently been able to recognize the risk and put the processes, procedures, and institutions in place to be able to manage that risk. And I should say to you, I'm extremely proud of the work that has been done by the Ministry of Financial Services, by the Attorney General's Chambers, those two entities in leading with financial services, Commission, FIA, the DPP's office, all the different entities which have been involved in the work that has been done. And since the observation period, there have been so much work that's been done that the FATF in their statement acknowledged all of the work which the Virgin Islands has done, which I'm told is not something that they normally do. They actually acknowledge all of the work that we did. So I'm extremely proud of the progress that we've been able to make thus far.
And Sean, sorry, Mr. Beacon, I can't tell you what to say, but Disney-esque attempt is definitely wrong, and I definitely would ask you to withdraw that description. It is not a Disney-esque attempt. It is not any attempt. It is what is a fact. I've laid out for you the 6 areas that we need to work on. And as I've said to you, when investors see that we are improving those areas, that we are working very swiftly and visibly to improve those areas, it only strengthens and bolsters their confidence. So to call it a Disney-esque attempt is completely wrong. But everybody is entitled to their opinion.
I'd be very happy to withdraw if you could show me one experienced senior financial services expert who'd agree it's not a setback. It's not a Christmas present, is it?
It is not a Christmas present, but it is not a setback.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, Sean. You've gotten quite a bit of attention from your word. We'll invite the next meeting. Sean, I'll ask you to just move forward a little bit so the young lady can get forward. Thank you, Sean. And I have a new face in here.
Good afternoon, Killer Penn, Tweet for Media.
Okay.
Honourable Hodge-Smith, with the Miss BJ pageant not taking place this year, can you share what plans are in place for the coronation aspect of festival? And as well, will any participants from prior pageants be engaged to ensure continuity of this long-standing cultural tradition?
Thank you so much for that very important question. And just want to say that the Miss BVI pageant, formerly Miss Festival Queen pageant, started in 1953 with the crowning of our first Festival Queen, missionary from Jocelyn Dyke. And it was in 1975 that we switched over from Festival Queen to Miss BVI. And we have been going ever since. And I like to say and very proudly say that our pageant is one of the longest standing pageants in the region. And we will do all that we can to safeguard it, all that we can to protect it. Our decision this year to do a coronation is not something that we are very pleased with, But because of the circumstances that we found ourselves in, that we had no choice. And this is something, crowning or the coronation of a queen is something that we did before, twice before. So it's not something new. I believe the last one that we did was during the COVID. We had coronation on a boat. That was a very good activity. It was very nice. We crowned someone. And then I believe a couple of years prior, I don't remember the exact reason why. But in this particular case, because of certain circumstances that we found ourselves in, that we had no choice, we were down to 2 contestants, and they themselves had some challenges. So the decision was taken to do the coronation and to justify the coronation of the first runner-up from last year's pageant. We wouldn't involve anybody else, any other contestant or any other former contestant, because we justify in doing that because she had already gone through the categories. She had already been judged. She participated and was judged. So we can safely say that she been through the process. And as opposed to just selecting someone who had not gone through the categories. I know one of the contestants this year wanted us to crown her, but we explained to her that no, you haven't been judged per se. So we're satisfied. We're going to go forward with the coronation. You'll hear more about it. It's still in the planning stage. So we are going to actually have that event to do the coronation. It's going to be just as elegant as attending to Ms. Beebe. I remember meeting someone and said, but what am I going to do? I already bought my gown. I said, well, we're going to do something nice and you can still wear it. So we want the persons, the public, to support Ms. Hodge. She's going to be crowned our Ms. BBI 2025 and to be added to our illustrious cadre of Ms. BBI title holders.
Thank you. Premier Wheatley, I know it was confirmed that approximately 1.2 million was approved for festival and fairs committee for 2025. However, of that sum, how much is going towards the Emancipation Festival?
Thank you for that. I don't have the details in front of me right now. Those would be included in the committee's budget. I'm not sure if the PSU or anybody on the committee had a up-to-date figure on the contribution towards the Emancipation Festival.
All of it minus the Virgin Florida across the Virgin.
Okay, so the 1.2 million does include all festivals. It starts with Easter Festival. We have the Emancipation celebrations in town, and then we start in town, we go to Eastern, and we end in Caribbean. So that figure encompasses all those activities. So whatever is left, you don't have the exact figure now for the Easter. So whatever is left from spending for Easter Festival goes towards these activities. And as the Premier said, and rightfully we've always said in the past that 1.2 or even what we have received in the past was never sufficient. So we're hoping that in the future we can justify why we should have an increase in getting the funds for festival increased. But whatever's left, that's what's there. I don't have an exact, maybe, but we're looking towards an additional set of funds through the SAP process that's going to be taking place shortly.
And just to repeat, 1.2 was approved in the budget, but supplementary funding is on the way. Okay, and I'm not sure if anybody has the figures for the technical persons, the figures for last year, for instance. But it was beyond 1.2 that was spent.
Okay, just to correct, sorry, for clarification, there was 1.1, which would be for this year, for the Emancipation Festival. But 100,000 was spent for Easter, for the Easter Festival activities.
Are you comfortable with that answer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And one last question. Premier Wheatley, you touched on the basket of goods. Considering that we import a large portion of our food to feed the territory and heavily relying on the mercies of those who dictate gas and diesel prices, Should there be any concerns with the ongoing war between the United States and Iran?
Yeah, we're always concerned when things are happening internationally that can affect the prices of goods. We've had a great deal of instability in recent times. We've had the war between Hamas and Israel, challenges with Lebanon, and now we have outright conflict between Iran, Israel, and even the United States is getting involved. That's in addition to war between Russia and Ukraine. And all of these things affect prices because of the goods, whether they're food goods or whether it's things like petroleum or oil. Those things have the potential to impact prices here in the Virgin Islands. Obviously, we don't have much control over these type of events. We continue to, of course, hope and advocate for peace in the world, and all of the multilateral agencies like the United Nations who are concerned with maintaining peace in the world, that they would do their work and play a role in settling these conflicts. But the only thing that we can do is try to control what we can control here. Our own domestic policies that can help to brunt the impact of challenges abroad. And in the past, we've done things like, for instance, provide some level of subsidy to the electricity corporation, for instance, to try to lower electricity bills, something which touches just about every resident and citizen in the Virgin Islands. So there are a number of measures we can consider as we monitor the impact of these conflicts on inflation.
Thank you, Delby.
Thank you, Ms. Kayla Penn, correct? I love that we have
congratulations on your first set of questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe you were a local anchor. We love that, so congratulations as well. And we have our last person from the media house. I believe it's Coverberry Media.
Can I from behind here?
We prefer you. It's okay, we can fit. You're very tiny.
Yeah.
You're not big.
I'm tiny?
Oh, you're not big. So you can fit. We need for you to be on camera. All right, there you go.
Good afternoon. Cindy Roseanne, Coverberry Media. Premier, can you confirm the cash component of sponsorship to the following, please? The BBI Music Festival, which is being held this weekend at King Barnaby, and Yola Promotions from January 1 to August 31st, 2025. And if you can break down the Yola sponsorship by event and cash sponsorship amount.
That sounds like a question I'll have to bring back the information to you for. There's very detailed information you're seeking. So perhaps I'll have to provide that subsequently. And I have no challenge, for instance, providing information on sponsorship to YOLO. Of course, I think there might have been just 2 events that I sponsored for YOLO this year, I believe, which is the well-known Vibes Cartel concert. That was $220,000. And I just have to double-check how much I sponsored for the first basketball event that took place, the Kings of the Court. I think it was somewhere in the region. I'm trying to remember what the first prize was for the first event. I think it was like $15,000. I think I sponsored 15. I'm trying to remember. Is that either 10 or 15? One of those things I sponsored.
So you sponsored the cash prize?
The cash prize for the first event, or Kings of the Court.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just sponsored him. He used it how he saw fit.
And the other one, no?
No, I didn't do.
20,000.
I didn't do those.
7,500.
No, I didn't do any of those.
So how much did we get to the CHB?
That one I would have to get back to you on. I would prefer to announce it at a press conference I'm having planning with them.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Is the government taking any proactive steps to try to save Bank of Asia, including leaving the provisional liquidation status in place for a short period of time?
Right now, we're just leaving the liquidator to do the liquidator's work. But of course, if they're private sector persons who are interested, I believe the process will allow private sector persons to have a private sector rescue, so to speak.
All right, just a follow-up. What do you believe will be the fallout from the Bank of Asia debacle if in fact it does fail?
Well, I would say that putting a Virgin Islands deposit insurance in place, of course, in hindsight, I would say is very useful tool to ensure the stability of the banking system, and it was a useful tool in this particular respect. But it's sad what's happening particularly with the Bank of Asia. But these things happen all over the world, we'd have to say. The BVI is no different. We just have to make sure that we have the institutions in place to be able to address these particular matters when they do rise, and see what lessons we can learn.
Hindsight is 2020.
Yes.
Premier, when was the people's $5 million placed on the Bank of Asia? And do you anticipate a greater loss than the $5 million on the people's purse?
As I said, I'm gonna just let the...
Yeah, but you know when the money went in there. It went in February. It's simple to say that. I'm not saying that's when it went in, I'm just saying it's a simple answer. You don't need an internal audit for that.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll say this. The leader of the opposition asked a question in the House of Assembly, and I believe that, and he, I think, spoke about it when he made his address. Very clearly, it was deposited sometime this year.
So it was deposited in 2025?
Yeah, that specific $5 million, yes.
Okay. Follow up. Is the government aware that its deposit may have been used to prop up the bank's capital to forestall a liquidation in the belief that a sale was possible despite court orders?
Well, as I said before to you, and as I said in my statement, I don't want to get into hypotheticals. I don't want to get into rumors. I don't want to get into what is possible. I only want to deal in the public with what is absolutely verified fact. So I won't participate in any hypotheticals or anything that's possible or anything that's a rumor. If I don't have it as an absolute verified fact, I won't address it. But of course, we have a process which is ongoing, which I'm sure will give us all the information we need to have.
If you can permit me, Karen.
This is fun. Go ahead.
Investigations and internal audits.
Right.
We really don't ever see those, like the Beacon was saying. So maybe you can tell us about the $20 million error, that investigation, so we can have some confidence in the internal audit that you're calling on the Bank of Asia.
Yeah, I can do that, but that was done by the Auditor General, and actually that has been completed, and that's going to be laid on the table of the House of Assembly shortly.
When is shortly? Because I think we were told that 2 months ago then, as well.
Well, it's been completed and delivered to the governor and myself. The next step is to get it to cabinet. So I would anticipate sometime in the third quarter it would be laid on the table of the House.
Thank you. So I'm just going to say, Premier, unless you're calling the courts of the Virgin Islands liars, or you're willing and ready to outline exactly what is slanderous and libelous coming out from the media, if you're probably willing to answer questions, then, I'm just going to warn you and your government to cease and desist the threats to the media, because I don't think you'll end well.
So, Governor, we're going to ask
I'm
questions.
also going to be putting out 3 articles tomorrow, because I believe that people deserve the truth and the facts, and so I suggest you can probably line up your fact checkers.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to just stick with asking questions. Thank you, Professor Berry. That seems like the end of the press conference. When you have live coverage, It's a challenge, but we are where we are today. Premier, Honourable Lorna Smith, Honourable Luce Hodge-Smith, Marcy. We thank you all for being here, and really we thank you, the audience, and of course the BVI public for tuning in to our press conference for June 2025. As Acting Director of Communications, we endeavor to have much more of these conversations so that you, the people, can be informed in real time, and the government promises to be very transparent. So we thank you again. My name is Keria Christopher, the Acting Director of Communications, coming to you live from Road Town Cutlass Building, saying God bless you all and thank you for your patience, and have a good rest of the week.